Right, good evening. This is Robert Stevenson. It is 6:02 on Tuesday, March 26th. This is I'm going to call to order the Southwick Collin Granville Regional School District School Committee regular meeting for this evening. Can I get a motion to enter into the meeting? Can I get a show of hands to enter into the meeting? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, so we have. Can I get everybody to please stand for the flag of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have our consent agenda, which is the minutes of 2:15. This SRS fundraiser for the class of 2026 King of the Hill basketball tournament, and we have an out-of-state field trip to Europe, and then a home education proposal. This is the Speak Now River Hold Your Peace section. Anybody have any issues with that? Now's the time to bring it up. Okay, we'll move on and approve that in our action items. We have some warrants that we need everybody to sign this evening. If they please could take care of that, that'd be fantastic. Superintendent Willard, do you have any correspondence this evening?
I do not.
All right, so we are now at our first public comment section. So I will call you up in order that they've signed up here. There's a microphone at the podium there. You just need to flip it forward and turn it on. Steve, if you could make sure that is on. It's on. Okay. So again, 3 minutes. Steve will let you know when you're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He'll let you know at 2:50, and then we need you to wrap it up at 3 minutes. The first person up is Griffin Carroll from Southwick.
In late 2019, I sat down with Southwick administration. I was constantly in the high school office being interrogated about my traumatic experiences in the school, but this specific meeting had been burned into my memory. I told the district that if nothing changed, I would go public with my story, start a petition, hire a lawyer, speak out. I'll always remember what happened next. When an administrator turned to me and said, "Are you coming in here and threatening us?" I'm here tonight to assure you that it was not a threat. It was a promise. My experiences at Southwick are hard to explain. I can think about many different examples, but I'll just give you the highlights. Homophobic slurs, a lunch table chanting faggot at me as I was recorded. That video was spread all over social media. A group of students saying they were creating a terrorist group to eliminate all the gays from Southwick, and I was the target. Students referring to me as sinner. Students coming up to me and yelling, "Gas the Jews." Physical harassment and cyberbullying, just to name a few. Each time I reported, I was told that it would be taken care of. It wasn't. It is years later and nothing has changed. The bare minimum I deserve is an apology, but what I really deserve is my childhood back. I deserve to have a normal high school experience. Skyla Lopez deserves to have a normal high school experience. I should not have known the ins and outs of courtrooms and therapy offices when I was 13. I should have been outside playing and loving my life instead of wishing every day that it would end to put myself out of misery that you were complicit in. All of you staring at me right now, emotionless. Why didn't you protect me? Why, when a child came to you in pain and in danger, with screenshots, proof, videos, witnesses, you did not follow your own bullying procedure? Why didn't you protect me? Why aren't you protecting Skyla? Because in Southwick, bullies are more protected than victims. You made that extremely clear. This is not a new issue. If any of you are shocked by the recent racist incidents, check your privilege. This has been going on for years. I've been coming to these school committee meetings 4 years ago. You all knew I was never quiet. No one was ever quiet. You turned a blind eye. And turning a blind eye to our pain is the definition of privilege. I ask you how it feels knowing that 2,000 people have signed a petition asking for your resignation. Do you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, maybe threatened, like your whole community is against you? That's how I felt every single day in the school culture that you created and were complicit in. Every day. That's how Skyla Lopez feels every day walking into those doors. Do better. That's all.
We have a list from Suffolk.
Sure, Madam Clerk, you yield my time.
Thank you very much. Next, Astor Road.
Good evening. Maybe this is maybe the third time's a charm, or maybe it's not. I stand here again today, echoing the words many of us have spoken. I stand here acknowledging the privilege I hold as a white man. A privilege that means I don't experience the harassment and trauma students of color go through at the school district and throughout the world. While I cannot comment or stand here saying I understand how someone feels to be targeted for their skin color, I am not oblivious to my surroundings. While I don't experience and see it as a student, while I don't experience this, I can see it. As a student, I experience what it is like at the school 5 days a week. I see the effects, outcomes, or lack thereof for policies, goals, and standards set in place at the school. I believe this lens is vital to understanding and seeing how our school district works in action. Often viewing events from the outside leaves you with fragments of the truth, and bits and pieces you slowly pick up to uncover the full truth and the full picture, the full frame of a puzzle. Some in this very room might sit here saying currently that I too have fragments of a puzzle that I'm putting together. And you're not wrong. But what you don't know is who I am. I am someone who doesn't give up when searching for the truth. I am not someone to back down from a challenge, and I am certainly not afraid to speak up for my beliefs. With this, however, I am always cautious when putting my name onto something unless I can fully back it, unless I know and I am comfortable with the outcome. During the last school committee meeting, exactly 3 weeks ago, I stood here just like I am now, extending an olive branch in good faith. Following this, I was pleasantly surprised to have received an email from Superintendent Wooler who said she was very impressed with what I had to say. In her email, she said that she wanted to hear in more details my concerns and my ideas. Taking her up on the offer, we convened in a conference room that I ironically had sat in last November discussing my concerns about the administration at STGRSD at the time. While things have improved since then, I am sharing this to show that these events don't just come out of nowhere. We can't just sit here and act surprised each time we see breaking news flood our screens about the next incident, which historically has and continues to be racially motivated. Nonetheless, I sat there in hopes of real solutions and having a meaningful conversation. Again, I can only speak for myself, but I think we were able to hear each other from the things that we had to say. I was given an opportunity to learn about and what it means to be a superintendent and what the job entails. And I was also given a website printout of the top 15 leadership qualities that make a good leader. I'd like to share a few that stood out to me. Inspiring others. Quote, when the good gets tough, they look up to you and see how you react to a situation. If you handle it well, they will follow you. End quote. Commitment and passion. Quote, if they feel that you are not fully committed or lack passion, it will be an uphill task to achieve the goal. Communication, accountability, transparency. The list goes on. Well, what I ask you and those sitting in this room, if you have achieved these basic goals, are people following you? Are they looking up to you?
I need you to wrap up your comment.
I'll wrap it up. Yes. Does the community feel full commitment? And do we see transparency? On the 15th of this month, alongside 3 of my peers and one of our vice principals, we took a field trip to Sutton High School for a conference dubbed Connections Conference, or ConCon for short. We went to an ordinary high school, one that you might just drive by on the way to a friend's house or to run some errands.
After, you could finish your comments.
But until-
3 minutes and 30 seconds at this point.
But until you experience it yourself, it will forever remain ordinary. Walking through those doors and experiencing what we felt that day made us realize how far behind our school is in terms of inclusivity, diversity, and the ability to provide a safe and welcoming environment for all. That day forever changed my view of school.
I need you to finish
While
your
many
comment.
students dread waking up,
Take a recess.
I believe that if STGRSD felt like ConCon, things would be a lot different. If society was like ConCon, things
Okay,
would be
can
a
I
lot
get a motion to recess?
What worries me is that if we can't even start with the basics, what worries me is that we can't even start with the basics. It's been a little over 2 weeks since we've had soap in one of the boys' bathrooms. let alone a soap dispenser, because some students decided it was a good idea to rip it out of the wall. In another example, I condemn these actions, but I wonder why students feel comfortable doing it. Do they just not care? Or is it something more? Do students feel that they won't get punished? And while it may seem unusual for me to bring this up, I have to ask, if we can't get down the fundamentals, how do you expect our district to combat generational racism? How do you expect our district to combat bullying or harassment? I think these are the very questions that we need to be asking ourselves, rather than, did I follow the necessary standards? Because let's be clear on this. There's a difference between following and exceeding standards. Currently, if you visit STGRSD.org, you will find a front page section with a headline, Resources and Conversation Starters around bias and discrimination and racism. Following or farther, under the Family tab, there is a section at the top titled Bullying Prevention and Intervention. While these resources are a step in the right direction, I have to wonder why these weren't there a few months ago. Why, through my investigation over the past 3 weeks, I have discovered that on December 7th, 2023, these resources were not there, yet on February 27th, they magically seemed to appear. Let me end with this. Through the many history and civic classes I have taken at STGRSD, I have learned that the right to vote is one of the most fundamental rights all Americans have. While you could get into the specifics of why this isn't necessarily equal for all Americans, I remind everyone here today, listening on Zoom or in this room, that the school committee consists of elected officials. And I call on the community to ask yourself if the school board represents your interests and your beliefs. Believe me, the moment I turn 18, I'll be voting. But can I count on you to do the same in the meantime? Thank you.
Okay. So,
I have a question, just a question. I just want to ask if the motion that you proposed needs to come from those of you up front only.
yes, ma'am,
Thank you.
I need to get a motion and a second. Okay.
But from all of you
Yes, ma'am.
folks. Thank you.
I'm trying to be respectful of you and the audience, but I need that to come the other direction as well. Okay? I'm not discounting the comments that are being made, but I'm asking you to follow the rules of public comment. 3 minutes per person. Allison Lopez, you're up next.
Really saddened me, you do not realize the importance of this conversation. You'd rather give us 3 minutes to discuss a situation that is very, very important, right? So I really don't understand your lack of sensitivity. You really lack sensitivity, because you know that this conversation needs to happen. It's not happening with you guys, so we need to have the conversation with you, so you can understand how effective this is for us. The district attorney made a decision a couple weeks ago. 24 hours after he made his decision, students in your high school went to a restroom and wrote on the wall, KKKs are good, niggas are bad. This is why we are here tonight. You have to understand that. It's not okay. It does not affect you because you have that white privilege. It affects us. It affects her. Do you understand that? It affects her. 3 minutes is not enough, and you're not going to stop me at 3 minutes. I said that to you 2 weeks ago, and I took 15 minutes. So I can take 6 tonight if I choose to. You have to understand this is a problem in your district. You have a parent on your committee of the child did one of the races.
Say it again.
Don't you get it? She should. So what this out. Under her watch. 2 days of sensitivity training is not going to fix it, Willard. It's not going to fix it. It's been happening for years. Not one, not two, over 10 years. You're not gonna treat the little black and brown babies in this district like second-class citizens because we come from out of town. No. No, you have me now. I am going to be in your face every month until change happens. I want you gone. That's the best place for you to be, is gone. Because you do not know what to do. This committee needs to be revamped. You guys golf together. You go out to dinner together. That's not gonna work. It's not going to work. You need to be gone. You need to excuse yourself. You need to resign. You're no good for this. You're not just failing the black and brown, you're failing your own time. Because you're teaching them hate. You're teaching them it's okay to hate. My daughter came to school on Monday. A friend told her, you know what? You had a conversation of a birthday party over the weekend. The little girl was talking about how much she bidded on you. Do you know that? Was that brought to your attention? Don't say you, because I know you know. Should she have to go through that again? Again? At what point are you going to stand up and say enough is enough? At what point? At what point are you going to hold your teachers and your staff accountable? At what point are you going to walk the halls of that high school and make yourself present? When are you going to do it? You're too comfortable. And we need to make you uncomfortable because this is an uncomfortable situation for us. You have students who's telling you. You revamped your website to look good. You check another box. I am not a box. My daughter is not a box. She's a person. She is a person. Fix the problem, Willard. Fix the problem. You have a problem. It does not affect you because it does not look like you. Fix it, Willard. It's time to fix it. It's been going on too long. You need to resign. This person, Desiree, you need to have a step down. Because that shows us you don't care. That shows us you have no respect for us. I know her day is May 5th, 2025, but maybe she needs to go now. Maybe it's time for her to go now. She's just sitting in a seat. She's not worth it.
All right, we're gonna be at our 15 minutes now, so we're really moving on to our next order of business.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just have a quick question, right? Are you guys aware that this is not only going on in the high school, that it's also going on with the younger children? Are you guys aware of that? Anybody here? And if so, can you raise your hand?
Sure.
It's just one question I have, and then I'm done.
My-
Are you aware that the racism is not only going on in the high school? My daughter is 11 and she's experiencing racism in your system. And my daughter is 11. Are you aware of that? Because you're making it such a big deal about the high school, but yet my daughter was just experiencing nigger as an 11-year-old in our school. Are you aware of that?
Sir, I'm not aware of the situation.
You're not, because you're trying to brush it under the rug.
No,
Go look it up.
to do is answer. I'm getting ashamed. Citizens. I can't believe this.
Sir, I tried to answer the question. You wouldn't let me answer. When I did try to answer, you just walked out of the room.
Yes,
Listen,
because 8th graders are involved.
Sure,
You're
sure.
aware. I
this
can't
is,
believe I'm in it.
this is happening at every school in the Commonwealth.
We don't care about.
No, no,
that.
I
We care about
understand
what
that.
you're doing.
I understand, sir.
No.
Sir,
What
we're
are you
going to be
doing?
discussing what the district is doing at all three levels of school.
Then start it now. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Use the tools
Like,
utilized
this
here.
parliamentary procedure stuff is driving people nuts. Do your job.
All right, we are moving on to the sorry. The student advisory report.
You're okay. I mean, we can go either way. I can spread. We have a lot this week, actually. So first of all, again, I feel the need to say this every time. The show is next week. Please come to the show. Thursday, the 4th, Friday, the 6th, not the 6th, the 5th. 5th are on the roof, 5th are on the roof. And Saturday, the 6th, and there's 2 shows, 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock on the 6th. And also the MCAS was today and tomorrow for 7th, 8th, and 10th grades. I mean, it's not exactly exciting, but it's out there. Also, we just got the full schedule for the senior week, pretty much the same as every year. The 24th is the drive around. Excuse me. The picnic is the 28th. The senior walkthrough is the 29th. The award ceremony is the 30th. And instead of doing the banquet this year, we're doing kind of like a outdoor get together thing, foods, lawn games, the slideshow, etc. And that'll be the 31st. Also, finally, well, not finally, the right flight date is April 10th. So that'll be exciting for those participating in that. And finally, Magnolia, I believe you're the advisory board, right? So you might be able to speak on this more than me. But the Youth Advisory Board is doing a presentation for families on cell phone use and social media on the 23rd.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I am on the Youth Advisory Board, on the Hampton District Attorney, from Hampton District Attorney's Office. I've pushed for them to have this sort of education because it's obviously very much needed. This will be handled mostly by the Safety and Outreach, committee that they have. And I believe these Catholic high school members of the Youth Advisory Board will be in attendance.
So, yes, and specifically, if some other events they're doing here, they're doing a neurodiversity event. I can pass it down if that would make it easier to see it on the 23rd, where everyone wears red. And also on the 13th, a wearing green for Child Mental Health Awareness Week. Poster here. So, yeah.
Those are both run by the Connections Club at our school, which is the diversity and inclusion group. And then I have sports for today. Spring season has started. Baseball had their first scrimmage Friday against East Long Meadow, which they won. They also had their first formal game yesterday. And then their next game is April 2nd, away at Palmer High School. Softball has their first game, also April 2nd. That one is home against Holyoke High School. Outdoor track has their first official meet on April 2nd. That's also home. And boys volleyball has their first game against Duggan Academy. That is away, I believe, on April 2nd.
All right, well, next up would be policies. We don't have anything today. We were supposed to have a policy committee this afternoon, but that was fun. Action items, Superintendent Willard. Oh, sorry, hang on, my phone. Mr. Superintendent Willie just hang on one second, that might
She
be
just walked
something.
in here. Mrs. Carrier.
All right, we have our educational presentation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging update from Mrs. Garrett.
So over the next, three school committee meetings, each school, we talked about it at the beginning of the school year when we were presenting our district strategic plan. The first initiative under our 4 tiers is the DEIB. And, I thought that it would be great to have them come and each do, an educational presentation, so you could ask them questions on what it looks like in each of the schools.
Good evening. When students walk in our doors, it is important that they know that this is a place where they are accepted, nurtured, and belong. And here at Powder we believe it is the job of every child and every adult to take responsibility for creating that environment. Let me go to the next one. So I'm going to today talk about a 3-tiered approach. A 3-tier approach is what we often use in education. Tier 1, the largest tier, is something that all students receive. Tier 2 is when we're realizing that what is going on is not affecting students. Maybe these students aren't learning, or maybe they're more vulnerable for both directions. So we have a tier 2 level, and then our tier 3 is for individual students for whom we are still seeing that there are things that they're doing that are causing an unsafe environment, or they have learning to do to help themselves so that they are not able to be victimized. So this is a multi-level approach. You can go to the next slide. I was just recently at a conference and I saw this quote yesterday, and it said, if we could suspend kids into good behavior and fail them into working hard, it would have worked already. One of the things that we are really committed to, as I said, is a multi-pronged approach. So we are using accountability along with education so that students are changing and growing, at the same time being held accountable for actions. And as I said, it's the responsibility of all of us as families, as parents, as teachers, and as students to create this environment together. So we start with tier 1. Here at Powder Mill, we have our ROCKS program, and we use PBIS, Positive Behavioral Intervention System. We have an SEL curriculum that is done grades 3 to 6. We do grade level presentations regularly. We have done a whole school read, and we began doing morning announcements, which became part of our belonging initiative, which I'm going to highlight in a minute how that worked. So our ROCKS stands for Responsibility, Ownership, Cooperation, Kindness, and Self-Control. We build everything that our students do around that. Students receive ROCKS tickets for positive behaviors. Those ROCKS tickets can then be turned into cash at our store. If you want to go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our SEL curriculum. So all students receive the SEL curriculum, again, beginning in grades 3 through 6. It is something that was developed by our adjustment counselors in cooperation with our consulting psychologist, Alex Hirschberg. And we have a number of different units, but I'm going to highlight one that allows people to kind of see what's happening. So for example, in grade 6, we have our Respecting Diverse Views unit. The essential question for that unit is, how do I understand and value people from all backgrounds? The unit is created with 4 competencies, which are respectful treatment of others and avoidance of harassment and discriminate behavior. We have a number of things we want students to be able to do by the end, and things that they will know by the end of that unit in 6th grade. You can go to the next one. Here's an example of one of the lessons. This is the Green Man lesson. The student that the adjustment counselor who presents this with, works with them, has a large green. It's a piece of giant paper that they kind of cut out a big person on. The students are actually mean to this fictional character. And as they're mean to the character, they rip the character. So the character is slowly ripped. And after this character is ripped, the students then begin to try to repair and build the student of this fictional green man back. This is not a lesson that we developed. This is a lesson, as I said, that we've taken from a larger curriculum. And one of the things is that the green man smiles. And we talk a lot about how people often will smile through pain, and that our students need to recognize that when they're doing things, a person doesn't have to show you that they're in pain. You need to recognize that what you're doing can hurt. And it's not that person's job to say, always, no, stop, you're hurting me. We need to recognize that our words are incorrect. We need to recognize the actions that we're taking so that we don't take them. So the students go through this process and then they recreate, but realize at the end that you can't really build the man back. The man has permanent damage, that our words and the things we've done and said have really torn this person down, and they're always going to carry that with them, and that our words cause more harm than we think. Do you want to go to the next one? So following it, students did a reflection, and here are some quotes from our students that I can read to you about this activity that they did. What you say to other people matters. Other people have feelings, so you have to respect them. I learned that even if someone looks fine on the outside, they may not be on the inside. I learned that being mean to people isn't nice and can hurt them. I also learned that even if someone has a smile on, it may be hurting them. It made me happy to be mean at times and get it off my chest, but at the same time bad because I don't like being mean to others and hurt them. I think the message is that your words matter, no matter how much you say sorry, there's always still a little bit of them that is hurt. Ms. Savard, the last lesson was great, and it really made me think about how people carry the damage of insults their whole life. That's a deep message. It really showed me that insults and being mean is wrong. The message, your words matter, and what you say might not look like it affects the person, but on the inside, they could feel really bad about themselves. Because someone is different doesn't mean you can treat them differently. So those were from students this year who went through that lesson. We also do similar lessons, not in just grade 6. As I said, this is for all the grades. So a lesson that we do, you want to flip to the next one. For some younger kids, you can see, here's our adjustment counselor, Ms. Jorgensen. She's reading the book Maybe Tomorrow to the students. In this book, they talk about how everyone carries their feelings and their life experiences with them all the time. And that's symbolized by a backpack. They call this the backpack lesson for that reason. But we don't always know what's in other people's backpacks. We don't know what they're carrying with them. We have the options of being supported, of giving them space. And we talk often about the importance of communicating with friends what your boundaries are during this lesson. Another one that we do with the students is called What Do I Stand For? Students learn about values, what a value is. They discuss examples such as friendship, honesty, fairness, justice, equality, teamwork, creativity, all different values, and then have them connect how they think and feel with what their actions show the world. Often our kids will identify values they think they have, but their actions don't always show that. And we're trying to teach them the relationship between what they say they stand for and what they're actually doing and what it shows the world about them. They discuss what a reputation is, what they want to be known for. They reflect on, would someone be able to know their values that based on how they're interacting with people? There was a list on the right, you can see, of all different values. And the students check off those values and then talk about, if you say you have that value, how does it mean you're acting? What is it you're doing on a daily basis to show other people in your life? Or are you just checking it and you're really not standing for it? And they also talk about the fact that if you don't stand for something, then you fall for everything. Another tier of another part of our first tier is our grade level presentations. We always begin the year with rocks. We talk about the introduction for our building-wide expectations for behavior. We talk about positive language for how we expect students to behave. We follow that a few months or about a month later with a bullying presentation. These 3 presentations are done by myself and the assistant principal. We define bullying. We talk about the types of bullying, the effects of bullying. We talk with the students on how to report it, all the supports and ways to advocate for themselves. And we also talk in depth about consequences for bullying. About 3 weeks after that, we bring the students together again and we do a presentation on harassment. During that presentation, we define it. We talk about all protected classes. We have explicit instruction and building-wide expectations. Again, we talk about how to report it and we stress to the student consequences. We begin those presentations in 3rd grade. And when I say that we are explicit in our instruction, we talk about words that you should never say. We talk about how words hurt. We talk about a list of protected classes. We talk about identity and how a person's identity is a core part of their being and that we have no right to pass judgments or to make comments. We talk about our building being a place for everyone. When we say Grams belong, we mean when you walk in the door, this is your space. And every person has a place here and no one has the right to make anyone feel like this is left their building. Underneath this, you can say intent, you can see intent versus impact. All three presentations, we stress constantly, intent versus impact. When we start with the rocks, it's very simple. We talk about simple things, like you're walking down the hall. And of course, you know, you are all adults, but I do this with the third graders. And I talk about how you walk down the hall. You're walking down the hall and you're all over the place. You come around the corner, you bump into someone, they fall down. What was your intent? What was the impact? Your intent was to walk down the hall and have a good time. Your impact was you knocked them over and they're hurt. Are they any less hurt because you didn't mean it? All the kids understand that. And they say, no, the person on the ground is hurt. We then take that same message and we apply that to their words and their actions over and over and over again. And that while they may not intend to hurt someone, their impact is something that they will get consequences for, not necessarily their intent. Not about what you mean to happen. As we're getting older, we need to understand how our words affect others, and we need to act accordingly, whether or not because kids will often say, well, I didn't mean that. I didn't think that way. I'm sorry that you didn't mean that. However, the person took it that way. So intent versus impact is something we constantly talk about. The assistant principal, Mrs. Root, actually has it on the front of her desk. So when kids come and sit, it's written in big letters, intent and impact, and she's constantly pointing to it. The last thing I wanted to talk about quickly was our morning announcements. So during COVID, to try to bond us as a school, we began doing our morning announcements via video so that people could see each other, our students could see each other, and that has been something that we've continued ever since. Last year, we took a journey around the world, and that journey was a celebration of our students. And it was also a way for the students of Southwick Town and Granville to see themselves as citizens of a larger world. We know that we are not of the global majority, and it was important that our students started to see the contributions that the rest of the world has made. All too often, we live in a very small piece, and we see a small piece. And so our trip around the world took us 180 days on 180 stops around the world. The beauty of this is it began just as something just to add to our curriculum, but it quickly took on a real strong piece of belonging. One thing is that our students do the morning announcements on the video, so kids are constantly seeing each other. So just representation wise, you may be the only person who looks like you in a room, but through the course of the morning announcements, you're exposed to so much more of the building. So that built a connection. But very quickly, we started highlighting many of our learners and where they and their families were from. So when we were in Egypt, we had a young man who did the morning announcements and talked about his parents' home and where his mother was from. That afternoon, as I was walking down the hall, another multi-language learner came up to me and said, Mr. Carrier, did you hear morning announcements? And I was like, yeah. And he said, there was Arabic on the morning announcements. That's my language. My language, Ms. Carrier, was on the announcements. And as a fourth grader, he was just so happy to see himself in another student. Later that day, he asked his teacher if he would be able to do the responsive classroom morning meeting, if he could do the greeting. And he taught all of his classmates Arabic. That is the kind of thing where students can see themselves as part of a community. And it happens in ways that we don't always intend, but all throughout this activity of morning announcement, it grew. And each day we had more and more students able to show who they were and how they belonged here and open up our school to them. So those are just some tier one. So tier two, we have small groups that meet. So these are students for a multitude of reasons what's happening in our tier one is still not enough. So some of our students may struggle with skills, and so they may have a small group with our adjustment counselor or our BCBA. This could happen coming out of our student response team. It may happen as part of a SAT or as part of an IEP that a student needs increased skill building. We also started this year small groups with our special education teachers. That is a result of a team decision based on the student's IEP that says that they may be more likely to be bullied or more likely to bully based on their understanding of social skills. And so those small groups are doing a curriculum to help build skills for those students. We know that on tier two, students have received a baseline of education, so we are starting to see increased consequences when students are failing to follow our expectations, and we're increasing the behavioral interventions around that. And finally, in tier two, we will see student mediation for conflicts. So if there are student conflicts occurring, then we may have mediation meetings with our adjustment counselors to look at those things. You can go to the next one. Some of the small group interventions that we commonly see are self-regulation, self-confidence, friendship skills, conflict resolution, and social skills. So those are groups that will meet for 6 to 8 weeks, usually with our adjustment counselor and now also with our adjustment counselors and now with our BCBA. Those groups can flex, as I said, sometimes they may be longer because they may be dictated by an IEP. They may be something that as a team, we decide that it's a support a student needs. Maybe we've seen some problems on the school playground with friendship skills, with conflict resolution, the students not understanding and needs more support and more work and more explicit instruction. Then we move to tier three. So tier three is the smallest number of students. Here we have an increased level of service. Those services that might be something where we're referring to the community services and trying to connect them with more in-depth services that wrap around. It may be one-to-one counseling with our school adjustment counselors. It also can be one-to-one behavior plans with our BCBA. We also have safety planning and regular check-ins. So when we continue to see problems between students, we are always putting safety plans in place and doing regular scheduled check-ins. So for example, on my calendar, I have regular check-ins with students. It's really important that a student who has already had some situations where they're victimized knows that they have a clear path to administration to talk about it. So I'm always setting up meetings. So I'm meeting with students every 2 weeks. Usually it starts with every week, then every 2 weeks, and then moves out to every 3. And I'm consulting with the families to make sure they're comfortable before I pull that back. But it's just that check-in so that student doesn't have to try to find me to tell me that they're upset or worried about something that has happened. That's a regular built-in, they're coming down. So we also have sometimes bigger and further consequences in education when students are making repeats. That right there is where you start to see things like suspensions occurring internal, and they're spending time with the assistant principal or myself doing education. We occasionally do restorative justice. I am trained in restorative circles. We've done a few of them. That is something which we do with families that want to be a part of. So if both families want to be a part of a restorative circle after a situation has occurred, we have done those. Our adjustment counselors usually join in and I lead the circle. It is something that the families have to be on board and wanting to do. And the last thing is a mediation agreement. Mediation agreement, that's kind of, I will say, that's our code for we set the rules and you follow them. That's when we have student conflict that has continued, when we have 2 kids or 3 kids who are constantly making bad decisions with each other, and we set the rules for how that they're going to interact. So those are written agreements that the students have. We check with those students who are on those agreements weekly minimum to make sure that no one is violating them. But we are pretty much dictating all of the expectations of where they're sitting in the cafeteria, where they are outside at recess, every level to make sure that we know what's happening. Those are our 3 tiers. Additionally, we have had some PD for teachers over the last couple of years. One thing that has happened is we have adopted highly I'm blanking out because I'm very nervous. High quality instructional materials. I said highly, and I couldn't think of the next word. It's high quality, not highly. So we recently adopted into reading, and that has made a huge switch in our literature. So a few years back, we were not using what we would kind of consider more of a basal. So we were pulling our stories as teachers and as educators ourselves, and that limited to our experiences, right? So we were pulling books that we knew, things that we had read. We moved into reading, and that has really changed what our students' experience is, because now they have this literature that's been cultivated for us, and it's a much broader spectrum of literature. Additionally, we have completed a book study on culturally responsive teaching of the brain by Zaretta Hammond that looks at cultural learning and it teaches teachers to pull that cultural learning and use it as a scaffold to connect to current concepts. So the basic premise of culturally responsive teaching is getting rid of a deficit look. So instead of looking at a person from another community and thinking they don't know what my community looks, you're looking at a person and saying, what do they have that I can then build a bridge between myself and them? And the last is our professional development with the ADL, which is anti-bias education. And this is the big explanation of what our training with the ADL was. I think the last one is really what I want to highlight. It's identify educational response strategies to bias incidents that will facilitate teachable moments and foster a learning environment in which identity-based differences are represented, respected, and valued. One of the things that our teacher told us over and over is that they wanted to be able to work with kids in the moment, especially at our grade level. They don't want things to be just written down and reported and brought to the office later. They want to know how to respond in the moment when they're hearing something that they know shouldn't be happening, but they want to do it in a way that changes the child's behavior, that teaches the child why it's wrong and what they need to be doing and how to do better and how to be better. And so that last point was something that we really spent time literally the ADL brought us all sorts of situations and said, okay, this occurs in your classroom. What do you do? What do you say? And we worked in teams to talk about things that we say, things that we can do to really at each grade level address situations and have students learn and change, not just punish, which by the way, we do that also. We do that quite often. Come on in at lunch any day. It's full of people who have no recess, etc. But having that in the moment conversation with a student so that they can do better, so that they can be better. Because as I said in the beginning, if we could just fail kids into good grades or suspend them to good behavior, we wouldn't have a problem. But we really have built a lot around our teachers being able to respond every minute in the minute, feeling comfortable doing that. You can go to the last slide. So that's Mrs. Root and I. That is the bulletin board that was in our front all last year. And unfortunately, it's gone because of the new wall. But it was a really important message. This is your school. You belong here. You matter. You're worth it. You're important. Your values, you have a voice, you are respected. That was our commitment to our students and continues to be. It is definitely a work in progress, and we feel like we are learning and growing and changing every single day. Are there any questions?
What are the comments? I have a question.
So I have a couple of questions because our role as school committee is to ensure that procedures and policies are followed, as well as to make sure that that's supported in the budget. So I don't need to put you on the spot or anything, just a couple of questions. You know, when you were and by the way, I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the breakdown of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. What we're doing, how we're doing it. My questions are really more about who's doing it because that affects budgetary information as well. So when we're talking about the SEL curriculum that all students at tier 1 receive, who is primarily teaching those lessons?
So that's done by our school adjustment counselors. So they do that in the classroom on a weekly basis. And sometimes it's every other week, depending on the timing. If it's a short week, they try to stay on the same topics, but it's paced out to take approximately 3/4 of the year so that if there's lessons that get out of place, we don't miss any units. And so that at the end of every year, if there are students who they want to come back and kind of do a second round of some topics, they have a little bit extra time those end of the year months to do extra groups.
And thank you, I appreciate that, because my follow-up question was how frequently do they get the SEO instruction? The other question was, I know not everybody here are educators.
Yeah.
So the acronyms can get a little bit difficult for people. BCBA,
Board Certified Behavioral Analyst.
so how many school adjustment counselors do we have and how many BCBAs do we have in here in Powder River?
We have 2 adjustment counselors. They are in 3rd. One adjustment counselor is 3rd and 5th grade. The other is 4th and 6th, and they kind of jump. So as the kids go up, they go up. So your adjustment counselor in 3rd grade remains your adjustment counselor throughout. And our BCBA, we have 1 for the whole building.
Thank you. And I really love the intent versus impact. I know that that is an initiative that Superintendent Willard, put forth to us several years ago. And as we hear the presentations from all 3 schools, I hope to hear that phrase again. Final question. So moving forward, you know, I know that we're doing all this. I know we have been doing all these things. I know that nothing is perfect, and that just because you do something once doesn't mean that it fixes anything, and that we do this regularly ongoing. So moving forward, where do you see in your building, maybe the most room for growth in terms of tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3? Where can we beef that up the most? If you had to prioritize.
In tier 1, I think that we need to have a better reporting system across. So for example, right now, if we are to record something, it goes into Redditor. Redditor is our computer software system that is attached to the student. And getting information out of there is difficult. What we'd love to see, I'm going rogue, is she has no idea I'm gonna say this. I would love to see us using eSwift. eSwift is yeah, so it is a system where you're able to record behavioral data, and it's attached to the child, but it's not attached to their permanent record. So I think that when we're dealing with the students, we want to be able to compile, we want to be able to track, we want to be able to look for trends. And eSwift allows us to do that without attaching it necessarily to Redditor, which is a very cumbersome system. So that is something that we'd love to see for tier 1. For tier 2, I think that our adjustment counselors have done a really amazing job of creating with Alex Hirschberg the curriculum for tier 1. But I think that we need to beef up our tier 2. So we need to have more flex for our groups so that we know that this group it's a solid 6-week curriculum that we know, and that we have a way at the end of saying, okay, a student has learned XYZ competencies during that amount of time. Right now, often we're not sure, and we're waiting to see if there's another problem to know if they've really learned or not. So we're not at a point where the curriculum is, you know, if it's reading and I'm doing a tier 2, I know when they start what they were reading, and when they end, I know how they're reading, and I know if they can do that or not. It's not easy, the same with the social emotional learning. So we need to work on that. Tier 3, Mrs. Rudin and I have talked extensively about having a better education system for our students who are our frequent flyers, and building some things in teams where we're keeping track over the years of what extra learning we've done with them administration wise. And so she and I have talked about us creating that so that we really have a solid feel. You know, you hear when our students at the high school, for example, were vaping, there was like a track of diversion. You knew it. We feel like we need to be a little more structured, and we're looking at developing that.
Thank you. I appreciate all that you're doing, and I appreciate your responses. Thank you.
All right, you're not at the hook yet.
Just for the record, I'm a little shaky here.
That's okay, I'm gonna go to something.
Not this many people usually come, so you're all making me a little nervous.
So, back to eSwift.
Yeah.
So this is a computer assessment tool.
It's a computer program where you're able to track positive and negative behaviors. So, you know, we have our PBIS tickets, for example. We're not really able to track teachers, how many are giving, how many kids are getting. We're not able to, we keep track of office referrals, et cetera, but not in a way that is easy to then look at data and say, all right, are we getting more before lunch versus after lunch? You know, that kind of information to really analyze our trends better, to know how to approach situations. That's something that Eastwick allows you to do.
So you're not only gonna be able to track individual students
Yeah.
and be able to identify how they're doing along the line, but you're able to track groups of students and identify times of the day that you're running into issues. And I'm assuming that you'll be able to preventatively, based on that data, be able to put something in place
Yeah.
potentially before an issue happens.
Yep, and also it's something that the teachers can right now can contribute to. So Redditor is only administration doing it. This is something that a teacher can also be doing. So we're able to look at a broader picture of the student based on what's happening.
Okay, so many times when we have meetings and we're looking at number of teachers on an annual basis, number of teachers that we have, how many open school choice slots do we have per year, depending on the challenges that we're having per year. This would certainly be able to help with that issue as well, right? Where we're able to see, you're gonna have some objective data to say, look, this grade, we are having this many issues
Yes.
with,
Yes.
therefore we need more help, less help.
And you know, that's something which you have all been very responsive when I've come to you and said, this is a group that has some challenges. I need to feed 6 teachers and not move to 5. You've been good, but you've done it based on my gut and my team's gut. And it would be nice to be able to show you something a little more than just their academics, but to show social emotional, this is why this group has a higher level of need.
And eSwitch could be implemented early in what grade?
Pre-K,
Okay, and it could follow this child all the way up through graduation?
yes,
Okay, so if implemented, this would be something that we would be able to add to the district's toolbox.
yes.
To not only identify issues, times, groups, be able to put us into a spot where we can preventatively address issues before they get out of hand.
Yes, and also be able to look at what students have already had for example, for education around topics. So, you know, we'll enter tier 2 and enter into tier 3, we'll be able to be more specific and look at that in broader swipes.
So I'm going on a limb here. You don't have to know ballpark what something like this looks at.
I don't,
Okay.
but
So would you like a
I'm-
little homework?
yeah, I would love to. You
Okay.
tell me that I can go
No,
get some
what I
research.
would like you to do, and I don't think I'm stepping on a limb here. I would like you to get us some more information. Okay, obviously, I am, and I believe everybody on the table here is open to alternatives that we can implement in a rapid fashion that will help us preventively address issues. So if you can get us some information, we will be more than happy to get that from you. And if you want to be on the agenda in a couple of weeks, you can be on the agenda in a couple of weeks and I will write you down. Okay. Well, if you want to be able to get this passed, then that might be a good reason to be on the agenda.
I'm in.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else have any questions? All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. No, if from the audience, this is not the way that this is set up. I'm sure Mrs. Carrier, at the end of the meeting, if you have a question for her,
I'd be
she'd
very
be
happy.
more than happy to be able to answer that question for you. Thank you very much. All right, so now policies, now I'm back on track. So we, as I said earlier, did not have our policy meeting tonight. We are missing a superintendent right now, but I am going to sub in here at this point. We're going to go on to action items. So number 1, we will approve consent agenda items as listed above, recommended.
So moved.
Any questions, comments on the, actually, we don't do that for the consent agenda. So can I get a raise, show of hands if you approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0. Move to approve the Student Opportunity Act Plan 2024 through 2027 recommended. Superintendent Woodard, would you like to give us a little bit of information on the Student Opportunity Act?
Sure. The Student Opportunity Act is a legal requirement that we must have, draft one every 3 years. It was brought to the CPAC and the three school councils to get parental input. And it is in line and mirrors our, our district strategic plan. It's about early literacy and then looking at chronic absenteeism. For our lowest 20%.
And I should add that at our last ILT meeting, the work that we did at our last ILT meeting was around the preparation of this document and some of the stipulations that.
Question for everybody right now. Do we need to keep using the mics or can you guys hear us? Depends. All right, you keep using the mics. We'll keep using them. All right, can I get any other questions on this? Can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to approve, the fiscal year 2025 Southwick Fallon Granville Regional School District Assessment Ratio to the member towns as follows. Operating assessment ratio, Southwick 84.828%, Holland 3.066%, Granville 12.106% for a total of 100%. Capital assessment ratios 83.114%, 3.752% for Holland, Granville 13.134% for a total of 100% recommended.
So moved.
Any questions on this? This is an annual adjustment that we calculate based on certain criteria. Joe, you wanna?
No, we need to vote on this one.
We can vote on your, ready for the one? Yeah, this does, it will change it based on calculations every year, but it's a mathematical computation. Can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0.
So before you take a vote on the total operating budget for the next school year, you want to explain some changes?
So if I could, let us read the motion.
Okay.
We'll do a motion and then we'll get a second and then all open the floor for you to put in.
Great.
Okay, so next time, Steve, we need another mic.
Move to approve the Southwick County Granville Regional School District fiscal year 2025 budget in the amount of $27,999,248 recommended.
Okay, Mr. Trammell.
So what you have in front of you is version 4 of the budget. After going to some meetings in Granville, after doing the budget presentation on the 14th and on Saturday in front of the Southwick residents as well, we got some feedback about what the concerns about the budget. The increase is to the specifically the discretionary charges. And so given that feedback from Saturday afternoon, working with the committee, working with Superintendent Willard in a 48-hour period, we came to the conclusion of moving $250,000 from the operating budget and increasing our school choice by that amount. School choice, as I stated all along, is in a healthier state than it has been in other years. And with the impact that potentially the vocational change could have through the districts or through towns over the next 3 years, we feel comfortable going from 1.3 to 1.55 in school choice spending for FY25. Thus bringing the total growth budget to what Superintendent read, $27,999,248, bringing the overall assessments down to the districts or to the 3 towns as well. So, and no capital. We started presenting 2 projects at a total of 125,000. We have decided that those projects can be put off. One, the stairs at Powder Mill School here. The other one was a utility van. We feel, given the feedback from the towns, that it's important to come in with a strong budget that the towns can get behind, and that capital at this time is not needed. So the new gross budget 27,999,248 with no capital projects for FY25.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Anybody have any questions on this?
So I know that I spoke to you at the request of the Granville Select Board to take a look at the FRO. position that you have in the budget, and I'm just wondering if you have some updates, for us.
So after our discussion, I did reach out to Chief Landis, spoke to him about the concerns that were brought forward from Granville with respect to looking at an option of sure to have a shared position. Feedback that I got from him is that that trying to make that position into where somebody was gonna come down for 2 days a week, somebody from another town was gonna do another 2 days from a logistics perspective, would be extremely difficult for him to make that work, successfully. From a cost perspective, we have two options that we can do. The option as it is sort of set up in the budget is that, as we said before, the first SRO that we have right now in the district is a position that is completely paid by the town of Suffolk. There is no breakdown or invoice to the district for that cost. It is solely being borne by the town. With that, one option is to leave that in place. And then the second officer for the entire line item for that year be shared by the district. From a calculation perspective, it probably would come out to be the same thing, if not a little more, if we decided to actually invoice the district for both of those officers for the time on premise. The way that the budget's set up right now is that the second officer would be shared by the districts and the first officer would remain to be paid by the town of Suffolk. With respect to the officer being in the budget, this has been a conversation that I've certainly had with the chief over the last year. It started when they had the last shooting in Nashville. From my perspective, it's something that I wanted to include in the budget. The towns that are experiencing these type of issues are small districts like ours. We have, although all three schools are on one plot of land for one officer to be up at the high school, and then if we have something happen at the middle school or the elementary school, we've all seen in these instances that minutes are very important. From my perspective, if finances was an issue, I'd have an officer in each one of these buildings. I look at it as an insurance policy for our kids. And from my perspective, knowing the issue and knowing that there's a chance, even though it's small, if we don't put this in there, shame on us. If the towns decide to vote this down, that is their prerogative, and we as a school committee have done our job. From the feedback that we're getting right now from the towns, it looks like all three towns are in support of this. There's a question of how to or whether to invoice the first officer or the second officer. We can certainly figure that out, and we're open to having discussions on that. It's the devil's in the details from that perspective. But that is why that it is in the budget. And that's why we're looking to have it voted on and approved and put it to the towns to approve or not approve. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to approve the fiscal year 2025 Southwick Town Granville Regional School District assessments to the member towns as follows. Operating assessment transportation for Southwick, 84.828% at $968,140. Holland, 3.066% at $34,992. Granville at 12.016 at $138,165. Capital assessment for Southwick, 83.114% at $1,699,603. Holland, 3.752% at $76,725. Granville, 13.134 at $268,578. Minimum contribution of Southwick, $10,498,701. Holland, $354,160. Granville, $1,749,216. Discretionary charges to Southwick at 84.828% $360,968. Collin, 3.066 for $13,047. Granville, 12.106%, $51,515. Non-discretionary assessment to Southwick for $12,000, for a total assessment to Southwick of $13,539,412. To Talon, $478,924, and to Granville, $2,207,474 recommended.
Any questions on this? All right, can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to approve the MIIA Health Benefits Trust STGRSD renewal proposal for FY 25 for the current rates and the renewal rates. I believe it's about a 2.2% increase, and the dental blue freedom with ortho is at 0% increase.
No, this is this, right?
Any questions on this? Can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0-0. All right, we are now at our report section of the agenda. Superintendent Willard.
Sure, thank you, Chairman Stevenson. As I mentioned at our last school committee meeting, we have listened to a lot of our students, and we are in the final phases. We're actually in phase 1 of getting anonymous alerts up and running. The admin team met last week, and we were deciding on what the criteria would be for what the students could select and the times that they're going to be able to alert us with their anonymous alerts. We're going to be bringing it to our anti-bullying and racism student and staff group on April 1st to get their input before we move forward with making it go live, which is very exciting and a big step for our district. Some of the other steps that we were taking is I mentioned that we were in negotiations with a college. We will be partnering with William James College. They are coming in and they will be doing a needs assessment on our district. They are doing it in another school district in Massachusetts that is facing similar issues to Southwick. At this time, they will be speaking with students, they'll be speaking with staff, administrators, and parents, and then they'll provide us with the necessary steps forward. Again, this is phase 1 is a needs assessment, and then phase 2 would be an action plan. April 23rd, the students mentioned, the Youth Advisory Board will be presenting to parents at the regional school from 6 to 7:15 on cell phones and social media. We are having our first meeting on April 1st with our anti-bullying and racism group up at the regional school. I anticipate 4 subcommittees at that meeting. This summer, we have to update, it's a 2-year, every 2 years you have to update your bullying plan. And so I'd like the students to actually look at the bullying plan and the staff and to really look at it and to provide us some student-based input on the bullying plan. We're also going to have our students look at the handbook and the code of conduct and give us some suggestions on that. We're also going to help them look at our health and social emotional curriculum and look at where we should shore up, where we feel that some of the content is lacking and where we could make it a little bit more robust. And what the next step after that is going to be certain presentations that we could look for. There is no one presentation that is going to be a one that's going to come in and solve everything. But over this past weekend, myself, Principal Shorter, and Athletic Director Marion George attended the Attorney General's Addressing Hate in Sports at UMass. And it was actually really good. And they are willing to come out and do whole school presentations and then do some smaller breakout groups. The presenters are from Northeastern University and they have a lot of experience. And it says addressing hate in sports, but it's really about looking at hate, and they it's framed around sports, but it's not technically just about sports. It was an amazing weekend. There were numerous school districts there from Western Mass. And it is something, that I've spoken to the Attorney General about, and she's excited to bring it next year to our school district. So these are just some of a few of the steps that we are taking. And as I stated earlier, we are going to be having, each school come in because we have been doing DEIB work for the past 3 years. I don't think we showcase it enough. I don't think we share what we do in our schools around the DEIB work, and we'd like to give you the opportunity to see the work that we're doing behind the scenes. Because as we know, racism and hate does not start at the high school. We need to start with our children when they're young and when they're developing their friendships and their interactions. And so that's why we've really been working on the intent versus impact for the past few years, and really focusing on that relationship building and being kind. And I know it sounds simple, but being kind to each other, because it does start with kindness. I also will continue to be transparent. If we have racist incidents, I know I will take political backlash in the paper, but I will continue to be transparent, and I will continue to tell you what is happening in the school, because we are a community. This is not a school issue. This is a community issue, and we're going to have to work together to address these issues. I struggle sometimes because I'm not allowed to answer back to a lot of the allegations that are made, and I have to sit here quietly. Unfortunately, that's my job, and that's the law that I have to follow. I am not allowed to share student discipline. I am not allowed to share information about anybody else's child. I am bound by these laws. So I know it can appear uncaring. I know it can appear that I don't care or that I'm not willing to respond. That is just not the truth. I respect the law, and I am doing everything I can from my end and working hard with our administrators that there is a zero acceptance of racism and hate in the school. I wish I could look at all of you right now and tell you that we will never have another incident of racism and hate in the school. I can't do that. But I can give you my promise that I'm going to follow the laws, that I am going to be proactive, and I'm going to start using our students' voice to promote from within the steps we need to do to address this. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of that. Can I make a request? So I know that, the outside agency that you guys are bringing in the college, to do our needs assessment and everything, that was, something that was brought up at the previous meeting, a great request that we're moving forward on. I love it. Could you just do me a favor, all of those things that you just mentioned, so that when our constituents ask us about what we're doing, could you just send us what you just said, just a quick little bullet point list of, so that we have it in writing, we can refresh our memories and we can respond appropriately. Also, the presentation that, the district attorney is bringing to the schools on April 23rd, for parents and for families, super important to involve our community and our parents. And I know that messaging is really hard, but can we just do everything that we can to get that word out and to encourage participation in any way that we possibly can?
Yes.
I feel that that's really important, but it's only important when people attend. It only works when people attend.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Trumel, anything from you, or pretty much all of us budget all the time right now?
All I got right now.
Okay. All right, we're at our subcommittees, negotiations. Any updates? We've got a meeting tomorrow, correct? Okay.
Two units left.
2 units, yep. Okay, finance, we've been meeting pretty much nonstop every day almost. So we will be getting a little bit of break at this point. The next step would be obviously, once now that these are approved, these will go to the towns for articles to be voted on at the town meeting. LPBEC, Erica, we everything? Tomorrow. I don't have a meeting, I don't know when our next corporation meeting is. Policy, we again will have another meeting in April. Aaron? Check it on that, okay, so we have another meeting in April, we are going through all of our policies this year to update them. The last time that all of these policies were updated en masse was 2005. So we are trying to get caught up with everything. It was a issue that we identified last year. We put money into the budget to be able to address this with MASC. So we are in the middle of a year and a half project, depending on how long and how quickly we're able to get through this, but we are already done to I. There's a bet, K and L at the end, so we're more than halfway through. So as we get these back from MASC, we'll be bringing them to the committee for review and approval. Buildings and grounds, we just had a meeting. It feels like last week, but I don't know if it was the week before. Okay, we have an update from our project approval that we're looking at for the review of the grounds. Looking at potential enhancements on the grounds here at the school. When the building project was done years ago, the grounds, the athletic fields, opportunities there were not put in the budget for that. So we are looking at that right now to see what kind of opportunities we have in front of us. We had some plans put forth at that meeting that we're going to be looking at to get some financial numbers on. The nice thing is we're looking at potentially moving some fields, looking at a potential turf field, some lights, looking at baseball fields being moved. But the nice thing is that the plan that we kind of looked at right now is something that we could put and do in phases. So that would be an extra opportunity for us, that we don't have to necessarily do all of it all at once. We could pick the most important, bring that to the voters, and then sort of tackle this one project at a time. IoT.
Next week.
Wellness. Nothing. Yes, SPED. Technology. Capital Committee, Mr. Fox.
We wrapped up the finance meeting, Tuesday, March 12th. Thomas South, we reviewed the fire department, for the investigator, firefighter EMT. Sorry about that. Sorry, okay. These are small movements. We finalized our last meeting on March 12th, Tuesday, March 12th. Thomas South, we reviewed the fire department request for $300,000. We used remodeling for bunk rooms for their staff. And we also reviewed the request for the 7th. And then we ended up the meeting by going through all the different projects and stuff. And of course, the general move is we're going to try to pull money from the product.
That was certainly what we heard at the budget hearing on Saturday. That's certainly what we heard at the budget hearing on Saturday, Mr. Kamala and I that were there.
Right.
Athletics, we need to have a meeting probably in the next couple of weeks. We've had them probably since the beginning of the fall or the winter session. Legislative, we don't have anything right now until summer. All right, so I gotta find my paper. We're now at our second public comment section. I appreciate those of you that have stayed to hear the information that we're providing. I've got 4 names left that had signed up. I'm certainly open to trying this again to see if we can do this. Amanda Liss, I believe, may have left. Juliet Hansen, are you still here? She left. James Grenells.
Sitting outside the back door. Yeah, he was just here.
Okay. How about Darcy Grimald?
My name is Darcy Grimald. I'm from Granville. I represent racial and social justice group based up there, and I'm also the grandparent of a student in the public school. I appreciate everything that's been said here tonight, but there has been an air of weary condescension that is disturbing. I appreciate that the principal was nervous. The things that are going on are nervous making. But they're important things to have conversations about. I don't know what kind of training the school committee has had. I'm 70 years old and I'm just learning things that I wish I'd known from the beginning. And I don't think we can just focus on behaviors. I think curriculums need to change. And I know there's big pushback all across the country. We don't want to make the white kids feel guilty. But it is time to learn about the contributions about music and literature and history, what has happened, what the Tulsa massacre, redlining. These are things that have to be taught. They're uncomfortable truths, and they're also beautiful truths. There's so much richness that our students of all stripes could be learning, and they'd be better for it. I don't know how your connections group is. I hope it's well attended. But everyone, the faculty, the school committee, everyone needs to be open to learning about their privilege and their responsibility in teaching our students. Maybe the behaviors wouldn't have to be addressed if they understood from the beginning what we all bring to the table. So I'm just asking to think about that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm not on the list.
You're not on the list. That's okay. Did Mr. If you, when you're done, before you leave, come see me and I'll get you to sign this, okay? Sorry, you can go right there. Yeah, I need your name, where you.
My name is Richard Quinn, Benton Drive, South. Two sons that live in the school system where I once said it works in my school. There's an elephant in the room and the folks have not addressed it. This evening I stayed for the entire presentation and there were nuggets that everyone brought up that were very helpful moving forward. But we did not communicate it to the original people that were in the room. They're looking for answers right now. But granted, you may not be able to give them everything they want right now. But a simple answer like, yes, I'm aware that it's not just us. It's satisfying. You need to address it that way. There should. I can't believe you didn't have a presentation the first time. And let out all the little nuggets, things that you're doing. It was all done in parliamentary procedure. I understand that. But it's all missed. It's like you don't care. And I bet you every single one of you cares. I would hope you do. If you don't, find another job. You know, just.
Did Mr. Critters come back?
So he's all set.
Okay, he's all set. Jeannie,
I didn't sign it.
yeah, I'll get you that. I know where you live. If you want to talk, you're the last one tonight. Just for the record, state your name, where you're doing.
Yourself or on your own self. One, I think the school committee and the community needs to address the position. I think that needs to be talked about. I think we need to really take to heart what the community is following forward for you guys to address. Two, the budget. It's been I've been a maniac about the budget since I moved here. And I thank you, Mr. Smell, for getting me the budget. I'm not quite sure why we have 3 pages about Granville in it, because there's nothing in Granville anymore. But I'm just curious what we do with positions that were not filled in 23 and 24. If that money was allocated, where does that money go? Does it go back in the budget? But I don't think it does. The SRO officer, I think, is a great idea. However, we're going to figure it out. I'd like to see the dean of students looked at rather than the vice principals, because it sounds like a discipline and behavior problem, more of an administration problem. I'd like to see those two positions come out, so you guys have time to talk about it. I'd like to know what the difference between a team leader, an advisor, and a specialist compared to a coach is. There's some allocation for money in here. It comes up quite a bit. About those salary. Team leaders are making 11,840. I don't know how it's distributed. Coordinators are getting 1552. Advisors are getting 877. Powder mill team leaders are getting a little bit more. So I'm not quite sure. I can't quite figure out through this strictly budget what line items, what we have a lot of zeros in a lot of line items, so it's confusing as a community member. Something about $6,000 for administrative office support. I'm watching for my card, sir. I'd like to talk about the budget in November rather than March, because you guys have already agreed to pass the budget, even though you really don't know what's in here, and neither do any of us. I'd like to see all of us say no thank you to the budget this year. It doesn't mean the kids don't get their money. They get last year's budget. The school will run just fine. I feel like we're having a retail sale where we inflate the numbers and then we cut the numbers to think that the community is getting a sale or a budget. We're not. And then the other thing is, I don't want to see the 420,000 come out of this year's budget. I'd rather have my road paved. I'd rather have my fire department and police department addressed. So I think that you guys folks doing your job need to take a little bit more time and go line by line, watching to get this a little tightened up. I think I'm the only community member that's been to every budget meeting at the town hall, and I can say that everyone else is equally funded except for us. We are way over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll have one more. And
Carol Wade.
oops, yeah, right up the top. Speaking.
Carol Wade, North Riding Road, 173 North Island. What I have to say is similar to what I think it was Darcy was saying. I've heard stories all over the country about banning books and banning courses and curriculums at town libraries, school libraries, and school curriculums on racial justice, Black history, LGBTQ rights. And reasons that are given for banning these books are that racism is no longer a problem. Racism is a thing of the past. And that these are topics that would be upsetting for our children to hear about. And I'm not sure if this is a problem that has reached Southwick yet as far as banning the books. But I would like to suggest that instead of less of these books, actually we need more of these books. Because clearly racism is not a thing of the past. And our children need to be learning more about it, not less.
Thank you very much. I do want to address the multiple times during the meeting, and I don't disagree where a conversation is needed. The challenge that we have at this meeting is this is not the right forum for it. That doesn't mean we can't have a special meeting where we have more public comment and we have the opportunity to have a conversation. As I said 3 weeks ago at our meeting, this is an issue that's going on not just here. We're certainly highlighted right now because of the recent incidents. But this is something that I believe as a community we do need to talk about. We do need to address it. Everybody up here, Mr. Quinn, does care very much about this. The challenge that we have, and you mentioned parliamentary procedure, but the challenge that we have in a school committee meeting is it's not set up or created for that conversation part. I'm not opposed to having a special meeting down the line to give us an opportunity to do this. I personally don't know whether it's really the best spot to do it as a school committee special meeting though. I think it may be a good idea as a community for us to have a special meeting to talk about these things, to identify the issues, to figure out how we can help reduce the incidents and reduce the effect. I think it was Chief Landis that said this. I mean, we have a zero tolerance to this, but we can't guarantee a zero incident. when these things happen, they are investigated and addressed. And as we've heard again tonight, most of these items and the times when these things are happening outside of school time. It's not, I find it, I'm not an educator, but I find it impossible to look at a teacher and say, you're responsible for that issue that happened on the weekend.
They go home.
No, but that doesn't mean that we can't be a part of the solution. I agree with you, but we need to do this together in conjunction with the community to address these issues. So we are open to doing this. The challenge that we have is this is not the right forum to do that. So I just wanted to address that because it certainly comes up. I understand, but it's not the right forum for us to be able to address that.
You just took the time right now to address it. You could
But
have
this
done
is
that
not-
at the beginning of the forum, and you would have done yourselves so much more favor. I'm trying to help you.
I understand that.
Just keep digging a hole and burying yourself.
All right, so at this point,
Am I wrong?
old business. Anybody have anything for old business? Okay, new business. Oh,
I mentioned this a few weeks ago, even before the unfortunate incident happened. And, I think, Mr. Grimm's point, we have a messaging problem. And I think we need to find ways of getting the message out there, what's happening in our region. I point to Magnolia, I use this as an example. Those seniors are National Honor Society shoveling snow for our seniors to help out. Lucas, the slaves that they put in, the different events. Some of the great things that some of our teachers are doing with our administrators. We need to get that message out, and we're not getting that message out. And Mr. Quinn, just so that you understand, I'm gonna explain it. Public comments is a courtesy. We can't have back and forth because it's not on the agenda. Okay, so there's a legal issue there. So, and I hate to say this, because of the state Supreme Court ruling, allowing people to come into meetings and call anybody here, any name in the book they want. A lot of communities are now doing away with public comment, and I think that's unfortunate, but we brought it on ourselves. Social media is a serious challenge that we're facing as a community. But I'm here tonight, and I just read the thing about starting an advisory committee. I'd like to suggest that we discuss it under new business and form something to see if we can't start getting our message out there. And maybe, Rob, you have a great idea. Maybe we set aside a night where we have a community event and bring people into the auditorium and sit down and talk about this. And, okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
anything else for old business?
Right.
Yes,
I just want to say, that is going to be part of the needs assessment. There is going to be listening sessions and opportunity for students and parents and communities to come out and talk to William James College about their concerns.
what kind of time frame are we looking on this?
We met with them on Monday and they, Aaron gave them some dates of our admin meeting and they are going to be starting before the end of the school year.
Okay, I don't want this to be something that they're planning in like August.
No.
Okay. All right, that would be fantastic. New business. This is the one that I put on, advisory committee for the school committee. As the chair, I have an opportunity, when special circumstances happen, that we can create an advisory committee to the school committee on certain subjects that we can open and start, and then we will close them at a certain date. What it does is it allows us to have a subcommittee that's made up of numerous different people. I don't want it to be too large, but I do want to have students involved with this. I want to have outside parents in the district involved with this. I want to have teachers involved. I want to have some school committee members involved, where we can have those people sit down, have a conversation about the challenges that we are having in the district, come up with some solutions or some recommendations that they can, on a regular basis, come and deliver a report to the school committee, so that we can take those under advisement and see if there's anything there that we can put into place. So I need to get a vote on that. That will be on the agenda for action items next meeting. But that is the suggestion that I've got. I mean, certainly open to comments or recommendations or thoughts.
I think with regard to Russ's point about messaging, I think that how we message and ask for help in this committee is important. I'm not sure the best way to go about doing it. It needs to be small enough to accomplish something, but diverse enough to be inclusive. And I think they cannot be a hand-picked committee, but it should be, represent a group of individuals who genuinely want to help and work towards productive improvements. And how we make that happen, I don't know. But it can't be a finger pointing. It can't be a laying blame. It can't be a dwelling on the past. It needs to be productive conversation with people who represent a diverse cross-section of our community. So I'm just putting that out there because I think we need to put our thinking caps on in terms of how we make this happen.
Anyone else? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I get a show of hands to adjourn the meeting. Hearing what the record show, the motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much, everyone.